it on us. We've been quiet for too long. We've been quiet too long.
Boy, they just beat the white shit off.
You gonna sit pink for the rest of your life. Tell Holly who the fuck we want. We've been too quiet here. This is a real trouble, bitch. You confused. You know exactly who the fuck. You ruined that girl's life and you killed my sister.
The courtroom goes silent. December 23rd, 2024. A pregnant woman stands before a judge, charged with first-degree murder. She claims self-defense. But the prosecutor has evidence that tears that claim a part. A fist bump, caught on camera, right after she fired 4 bullets into an unarmed mother's face. The victim? A woman she had never met before that day. The accomplice? The father of both their children. And now he's breaking his silence, disputing what witnesses saw, trying to rewrite the story. But the evidence doesn't lie. This is the Romeca Meeks case, and what happened in that courtroom changes everything we thought we knew about justice. Before we dive into this explosive update, if you're new to One Crime at a Time, welcome. We cover the cases that shake you to your core, the stories that demand answers, and the victims who will never be forgotten. So if you value real crime storytelling that doesn't sugarcoat the truth, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and make sure you click that bell icon because this case is still developing and you need to stay in the loop. Now let's break down everything that's happened since charges were finally filed. Let's rewind for a second because if you're just joining us, you need to understand how we got here. September 8th, 2025. Chicago's South Loop. A Monday morning, 31-year-old Romeca Meeks Blackman drops her 6-year-old son off at school. She's tucked a handwritten note into his lunchbox that reads, "Happy Monday, son. Today is a fresh start to this day, and you can start off strong. Always remain yourself. You're the coolest, smartest, and funniest kid I know. I love you so much, and you make me so proud. Have a great day." Within minutes of writing those words, Romeca would be dead. Shot 4 times at point-blank range. In broad daylight. By a woman she had never met. And the man who helped make it happen? Carlos Smith. The father of her child. Now, Carlos went by a lot of names online. Carlos Lozo's Way. Rackboy Loso. But his real name is Carlos Smith, and for months, he stayed relatively quiet while his girlfriend, Quadaja Holly Johnson, took all the heat. But recently, he broke his silence. And what he said is raising even more questions. Carlos claims that some of the details being shared by witnesses don't match what actually happened. He's disputing the narrative. He's trying to reframe the story. And that tells us something important. He knows he's in trouble. He knows that the more people look at the evidence, the more his role in Romeca's death becomes undeniable. So now he's doing damage control. But here's the thing. You can dispute witness testimony all you want. You can claim people didn't see what they saw. But when there's video evidence, when there are multiple witnesses, when prosecutors lay out a timeline that shows premeditation and celebration after the fact, your words don't mean much. So let's talk about what actually happened that day, based on the evidence presented in court. Carlos Smith and Holly Johnson were near his home on the morning of September 8th. They had a 6-month-old baby together. Carlos drove Holly to 20 West Cermak, where her car was parked. They placed their infant into Holly's car. Around the same time, Romeca had just dropped off her son at a nearby school and drove to the area. Now, prosecutors believe this encounter wasn't random. Holly Johnson had filed protective orders against Romeca. Not just once, but twice. The first one was filed in December 2023. The second one was filed in the summer of 2025, just months before the shooting. But here's the kicker. Holly Johnson had never met Romeca Meeks Blackman in person. Never. Not once. She filed those protective orders based on alleged threats made through family members. No direct contact. No face-to-face confrontation. Just secondhand claims. And that raises a massive red flag. Because if you've never met someone, if you've never had a direct interaction with them, how can you legitimately claim to fear for your life? It suggests those protective orders weren't about safety. They were about building a paper trail. They were about setting up a legal defense for something that was already being planned. So the two women finally come face to face on September 8th. Witnesses say they argued. Things got heated. And this is where Carlos Smith's role becomes critical. According to witness testimony presented by prosecutors, Carlos didn't just stand there and watch. He got physically involved. Witnesses reported seeing him push Holly away at one point, which sounds like he was trying to de-escalate. But then, the situation took a violent turn. Prosecutors say Carlos slammed a car door on Romeca. Then he put her in a chokehold. Let me be clear about what that means. A chokehold is a restraint technique that restricts someone's ability to breathe and move. It's a position of complete control. Romeca couldn't defend herself. She couldn't run. She couldn't fight back. Witnesses say she was standing with her arms crossed at one point, a defensive posture, not an aggressive one. And while Carlos held her in that chokehold, Holly Johnson made a choice. She didn't call the police. She didn't get back in her car and drive away. She didn't try to verbally de-escalate the situation. Instead, Holly walked back to her vehicle, opened the door, and retrieved a firearm. Then she ran back to where Carlos was restraining Romeca. And she fired. Once. Prosecutors say she paused. Think about that. She fired one shot, and then she stopped. She had a moment to think. A moment to reconsider. A moment to realize what she was doing. But instead of stopping, she fired again. And again. 4 rounds total. One bullet struck Romeca in the face. Another hit her chin. Another hit her thigh. Romeca collapsed. Emergency services were called, but it was too late. She was pronounced dead at Stroger Hospital. A mother who had just told her son he was the coolest, smartest, funniest kid she knew would never see him again. But here's what makes this even more disturbing. After Holly Johnson shot Romeca, after she killed an unarmed woman in the street, prosecutors say she fist-bumped Carlos. A fist bump. That's not the behavior of someone who just acted in self-defense. That's not the reaction of someone who was terrified for their life. That's a celebration. That's a gesture of victory. And when that detail came out in court, even the judge couldn't ignore it. The judge stated that celebrating in the street after shooting someone is not self-defense. And that's a critical point. Because Holly Johnson's entire defense hinges on the claim that she feared for her life, that she had no other choice, that she was protecting herself. But if you're fist-bumping someone right after you kill a person, you're not scared. You're not traumatized. You're triumphant. Holly Johnson was arrested at the scene. But here's where the case took a frustrating turn. She was released. Despite the witnesses. Despite the video evidence. Despite the fact that she admitted on camera she had a concealed carry license and had just used her weapon. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office released a statement saying there was insufficient information to make a charging decision at that time. And for nearly 3 months, Romeca's family had to live with the fact that their daughter, their sister, their cousin, their friend was murdered in broad daylight, and no one was being held accountable. Romeca's mother, Tina McMiller, became the voice of the family. She spoke at vigils. She did interviews. She demanded justice. She said, "I am broken. I am so broken." She described Romeca as kind, sweet, loving, very supportive, and an amazing mother. She loved her son. She loved me. She loved her siblings, and I loved her the same. And Tina also shared something heartbreaking. Romeca's son, who had just turned 7 years old, had shut down. He didn't want to be around anyone. He was preparing for his birthday, a day that should have been filled with joy, but instead he was grieving. He was confused. He was traumatized. And Tina, now raising her grandson, had to find a way to help him heal while also fighting for justice for her daughter. The community rallied. A Change.org petition was created, urging prosecutors to file charges against Holly Johnson. Thousands of people signed it. Social media exploded with outrage. People shared the video. They dissected the timeline. They called out Carlos Smith for his role. They demanded to know why Holly Johnson was walking free. And slowly, the pressure built. Finally, on December 4th, 2024, nearly 3 months after Romeca's death, charges were filed. Quadaja Holly Johnson was charged with first-degree murder. It was a massive victory for the family and for everyone who had been demanding accountability. But it was also just the beginning of a long legal battle. On December 5th, 2024, Holly Johnson appeared in court for the first time since being charged. And the details that came out in that hearing were stunning. First, Holly Johnson is pregnant. She stood before the judge carrying another child while facing a murder charge for killing a mother. The irony is almost too painful to process. Second, prosecutors revealed that Holly had never met Romeca in person before the day she killed her. Despite filing 2 protective orders, despite claiming she felt threatened, the 2 women had never had a face-to-face encounter until September 8th. That revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom and through the community, because it confirmed what Romeca's family had been saying all along. Those protective orders were strategic. They were part of a plan. They were designed to create a legal justification for violence that hadn't even happened yet. The judge ordered Holly Johnson to remain in custody without bond. Now, let's talk about what happened on December 23rd. This was supposed to be a routine court appearance, a procedural hearing to move the case forward. But even routine hearings in murder cases carry weight. The prosecution would have the opportunity to present more evidence. The defense would start laying out their strategy. And the public would get more insight into how this case is going to play out. Unfortunately, as of right now, there are no detailed public reports about what specifically transpired during that December 23rd hearing. It's possible the hearing was continued to a later date, which is common in complex murder cases. It's possible it was a closed hearing, or the details simply weren't reported by the media. But what we do know is this. Holly Johnson remains in custody. She is still facing first-degree murder charges. And the evidence against her is overwhelming. Let's talk about the evidence. We've got eyewitness testimony from multiple people who saw the altercation. We've got video footage that captured parts of the incident. We've got prosecutors who have laid out a timeline showing that Holly retrieved her weapon from her car, meaning the shooting wasn't a split-second reaction, but a deliberate choice. We've got the fact that she paused between shots, showing she had time to think. We've got the fist bump with Carlos, showing celebration rather than fear. And we've got the protective orders that were filed against someone Holly had never met, showing premeditation. That's a strong case. That's the kind of evidence that makes it very hard for a jury to believe a self-defense claim. But let's not forget about Carlos Smith. Because while Holly Johnson is sitting in jail facing murder charges, Carlos is still a free man. He hasn't been arrested. He hasn't been charged. And that's infuriating to a lot of people. Because according to witness testimony and prosecutors, Carlos played a direct role in Romeca's death. He restrained her. He put her in a chokehold. He made it impossible for her to escape or defend herself. And he celebrated with Holly after the shooting. That makes him, at the very least, an accessory to murder. It makes him complicit. It makes him just as guilty in the eyes of many people who are watching this case. So why hasn't he been charged? That's the question everyone is asking. Is it because prosecutors are still building their case against him? Is it because they want to focus on convicting Holly first? Or is it because the legal system is failing once again to hold everyone accountable? Carlos's recent statement, where he disputes witness accounts, is interesting. It tells us he's worried. He knows the spotlight is on him. He knows people are demanding he be charged. And he's trying to get ahead of the narrative. But here's the thing. When you dispute witness testimony, you better have evidence to back it up. And as far as we know, Carlos hasn't provided any. He's just saying people are wrong. But multiple witnesses told police the same story. Prosecutors presented that testimony in court. And it matches the physical evidence. So unless Carlos can provide video, audio, or some other concrete proof that contradicts what everyone else saw, his words are just that. Words. Meanwhile, Romeca's family is still grieving. Tina McMiller is raising her grandson and trying to help him process a trauma no child should ever experience. But there was a bright spot recently. In early December, community activist Early Walker and ENR towing CEO Kevin Corcoran selected Romeca's son for their annual Secret Santa campaign. Police escorted trucks carrying Santa Claus and lots of gifts to the 7-year-old boy. ENR towing presented a $3,500 check to Tina McMiller to help with raising her grandson. They dropped off bikes and other gifts to place under the tree, hoping to make his Christmas a little brighter. It was a beautiful gesture. A reminder that even in the darkest times, there are people who care, people who want to help, people who refuse to let this little boy feel forgotten. But no amount of gifts can replace his mother. No amount of money can undo the trauma he's experienced. And no act of kindness can bring Romeca back. So where does the case go from here? Holly Johnson will continue to sit in jail as the legal process moves forward. There will be more hearings. There will be pretrial motions. There will be evidence presented and arguments made. And eventually this case will go to trial. A jury will be selected. They'll hear testimony from witnesses. They'll see the video evidence. They'll hear from prosecutors about the fist bump, the pause between shots, the protective orders filed against someone Holly had never met. And they'll hear from the defense, who will try to argue that Holly felt threatened, that she feared for her life, that she had no other choice. But the evidence is damning. And the judge has already stated that celebrating after shooting someone is not self-defense. That's a strong signal that the court isn't buying Holly's story. As for Carlos Smith, the pressure continues to build. Romeca's family wants him charged. The community wants him charged. Social media is demanding he be held accountable. And the longer he remains free, the more it feels like the system is failing. Because you can't help someone commit a murder and walk away without consequences. You can't restrain someone while they're being shot and claim you're innocent. The law recognizes accomplice liability. The law recognizes that if you aid, abet, or facilitate a crime, you're just as guilty as the person who pulled the trigger. So the question is, will prosecutors finally charge Carlos Smith? And if they do, what will those charges be? Accessory to murder? First-degree murder? Conspiracy? The legal options are there. The evidence is there. The only thing missing is the decision to act. Let me ask you something. Do you think Carlos Smith should be charged with murder? Do you think holding someone in a chokehold while your girlfriend shoots them makes you just as guilty? And what about the protective orders? Do you think Holly Johnson filed them strategically, knowing she was planning to confront Romeca? Or do you think she genuinely felt threatened by someone she had never met? Here's another question. What does it say about our legal system that it took 3 months to charge Holly Johnson despite overwhelming evidence? What does it say that Carlos Smith is still free despite his role in restraining Romeca? And what does it say about how we value Black women's lives, especially mothers, when justice moves so slowly and accountability feels so hard to achieve? And on a deeper level, how do we prevent cases like this? How do we stop people from weaponizing protective orders? How do we ensure that when someone is clearly in danger from a violent partner or ex-partner, the system takes it seriously and acts before it's too late? Because Romeca's death was preventable. If Carlos had been held accountable for his behavior earlier, if the protective orders Holly filed had been scrutinized more carefully, if someone had intervened before that September morning, Romeca might still be alive. Her son might still have his mother. And we wouldn't be talking about another tragic case of domestic violence turned deadly. So here's what I need from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Holly Johnson will be convicted? Do you think Carlos Smith will ever be charged? What do you think should happen to both of them? And what do you think needs to change in our legal system to protect women like Romeca? Let's have a real conversation about this because these issues matter. They affect real people. They affect families. They affect communities. Hit that like button if you think Romeca's story needs to be heard. Share this video with anyone you think needs to see it. And make sure you turn on that notification bell so you stay updated as this case continues to develop. Because this story isn't over. There will be more hearings, more revelations, and hopefully more accountability. If you found this case as compelling and heartbreaking as I did, visit the channel and check out the next video we have lined up for you. We cover cases just like this, stories that demand justice, victims who deserve to be remembered, and questions that need to be answered. There are so many cases out there that need attention, so many families still waiting for justice. So don't stop here. Keep watching. Keep learning. Keep holding the system accountable. This is one crime at a time, and we're not stopping until every voice is heard and every victim gets the justice they deserve.